and welcome to our webinar from SPX Flow. And today we're looking at the APV Flex-Mix Pilot Mixer. Thank you for joining. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Conor Driscoll. I'm a Global Product Manager for our dispersion products here at SPX Flow. I'm based in England, and I'm really grateful that you've joined us today to hear about one of our new innovations, the Flex-Mix Pilot Scale Mixer. I'd like to just give some housekeeping notices. Firstly, the webinar is being recorded. That's to enable us to send you a link afterwards to enable you to rewatch it, or if you weren't able to join after registering, you're watching it now. As such, your camera and audio have been turned off. However, you can use the chat and Q&A functions to submit questions and comments. We'll take some time to answer those questions at the end of the presentation and follow up on any others that come up afterwards. And finally, after you leave today, there will be a short survey sent by email. I really appreciate if you can take the time to complete that survey. It helps us with future presentations and product developments. It really doesn't take very long, so thank you in advance for that. Today we'll be looking at a number of items in relation to mixing in the food and beverage industry. Firstly, different types of mixing, the operating principles of different mixers, the key benefits of our pilot mixer, which is a tank mixer, and then take a very brief look at the Flex-Mix range as a whole. But the focus today will be on our new pilot mixer and the benefits that it brings. So firstly, let's take a look at some different types of mixing. So here's a number of different definitions of mixing and mixing types. Mixing essentially is thoroughly combining different materials to produce a homogeneous product. It sounds simple, but of course there are many techniques and design characteristics needed to do it well. Then we have different types of mixing in tanks. We have liquid and liquid mixing, liquid and powder mixing, liquid and particle mixing, liquid and gas, for example, for aeration, and then powder and powder mixing in more solid form. The focus today will be on the first three types, which are covered by the APV tank mixer range or Flex-Mix range. Why is mixing so important? Well, here are some of the reasons. Firstly, consumer trends and tastes are evolving continually, and new products often require different ingredients to mix or new or different mixing processes to achieve the desired result. Mixing often takes place early in the process, and the quality of the mix has a direct impact on the quality of the finished product. Consistency, both in flavour and taste, is key to maintaining brand loyalty, and that recognition that comes from consumers recognising quality of a product that they like. Today, producers are expecting better efficiency in their mixing and in their processes in general, and the quality of the mix has a direct impact on the operation of downstream processes, for example, pasteurizers and homogenizers. And then raw materials are expensive, particularly more advanced ingredients, and producers want to mix ingredients as accurately as possible with maximum utilization of trace ingredients to minimize operating costs. So these reasons why mixing is important show that both quality and consistency, and then as well as cost, are critical characteristics which a mixer can influence. So now I want to introduce the Flex-Mix Pilot Mixer. And you see here that there are two models available, the multi-duty model shown on the left and the more basic model shown on the right. And we'll go through the characteristics of both. These two models cover a number of different mixing techniques, which we'll talk through in the presentation. Firstly, we have atmospheric mixing for typically low viscosity products, such as ice cream mix or recombined dairy products. And this uses internal recirculation and scales up to our Flex-Mix liquiverter mixer. Then we have vacuum mixing, also for low viscosity products. This is typically used on products like infant formula, plant-based products. It produces a better mix result than atmospheric mixing, uses external recirculation, and scales up to our Flex-Mix instant mixer. And then finally, we have high viscosity mixing with or without vacuum or heating. This is for products such as processed cheese, condiments, and bakery inclusions. And this type of mixing has external recirculation and scales up to our Flex-Mix multiverter mixer. And this is the type covered by the multi-duty model, which covers all three, in fact. The basic model covers the first two types of mixing techniques. The pilot mixer has a capacity of 140 litres, so very conveniently sized for small-scale test batches or slightly larger pilot-scale testing or production. Now we look at some of the operating principles of tank mixers in general, and specifically the new pilot mixer. The heart of the mixer is the bottom-mounted mixer at the base of the tank, sometimes described as a rotor-stator mixer. This is a rotor-stator device mounted on a shaft, which is driven directly by a motor. And the rotor-stator mixer pump generates a flow. And this flow can be recirculated internally in the tank, or can be recirculated back around an external loop, which provides a different additional functionality. So it acts both as a pump and a mixer. When in operation, a vortex sucks both the powder and the liquid down towards the rotor-stator mixer. And then in both the mixer pump rotor and the surrounding stator, high shear forces and turbulence are created, ensuring effective and homogeneous mixing. And in the pilot mixer, two different stator rings are provided for slightly different functionality. You see on the right here the image of mixing without recirculation and with recirculation, using different mixing stator. We'll take a look now at how it looks for the different mixing modes. Firstly, we have atmospheric mixing. And this is typically used on liquid to liquid and liquid to powder mixing requirements for low viscosity products. It's the most simple form. Here we have a baffle plate fitted inside the tank wall to increase the mixing effectiveness, and powders and liquids are simply added from the top of the tank. The mixing itself takes place internally in the tank with no recirculation, and this replicates the functionality of our Flex-Mix Liquiverter mixer, the square-sided tank mixer that you see on the image on the right. We look then at vacuum mixing. This is a slightly more advanced mixing technique. It's used for liquid-liquid and also liquid powder mixing, same as atmospheric, also on low viscosity products. But here the vacuum and the closed mixing improves the mix quality. The powder is added by being sucked in through a powder inlet valve using the vacuum in the tank, and it's mixed in under the surface of the liquid under vacuum. The mixing itself has a recirculation on an external loop, which the pressure for that loop is generated by the mixing head itself. And this technique gives better mixing, for example, with reduced foaming. There's no agitation or pump required to operate this mixer, and it replicates the function of our Flex-Mix instant mixer. So this is a more advanced mixer where higher quality mixing is required, or for example, where there's a risk of foaming. And then we have the third type, which is high viscosity mixing with heating and vacuum options. This is covered by our multi-duty version of the pilot mixer. Indeed, that version covers the previous two as well. And this is used for liquid-liquid, liquid powder, and particulates on medium to high viscosity products. And here the powder is still sucked in by the powder inlet valve using vacuum, as with the vacuum mixer. But additionally, we have an agitator and a positive displacement pump to give mixing inside the tank because of the product viscosity and recirculation externally using the pump. The tank itself is pressurized and it has indirect heating on the jacket with the option of direct steam injection. And this replicates the function of our Flex-Mix multiverter range. So it's used for those higher viscosity products. So let's look now at the benefits of these mixers in the different modes and what value they bring. So here's a list of some of the features and the benefits that you get from them. Firstly, it's a highly flexible solution. You can test a range of products from low to high viscosity in small batches, all in one mixer. You can develop recipes for everything from infant formula, ice cream, and plant-based products to dressings, sauces, and high-protein yogurts, to name a few. And as well as being suitable for test small batches, small producers can also look at making a variety of small batch production from 80 to 140 litres, depending on the recipe. So, for example, if you have frequently changing products or you need small batches, this mixer gives you the flexibility rather than having to make larger batches and have more product waste. It's a sustainable solution. You have that flexibility to test in your own plant, or you can look at renting a unit from SPX Flow, or indeed come to or send product to our innovation centres where we can do the tests on your behalf. You have reduced raw material waste because you can test smaller quantities and batches. It's a compact and ergonomic design, which just requires one operator to carry out all the functions. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, it's scalable results and dependable results. And this is because it's equipped with all the features of a full-scale mixer. For example, the high-shear mixing head, the heating and cooling jacket, the vacuum system, the steam injection option, the scraper agitator, and the automation system. And this functionality and our documented tests allow you to scale up with confidence to a full-scale product. This would help to minimize your time to market. So that scalability and the flexibility of the different operating modes brings a lot of value in terms of being able to use this product for a variety of products for quick turn recipe testing and development, and speeding up those iterations around the product development activity. Here's some of the applications that we can handle using this product. For example, mixing a product with low, medium, and high viscosities, operation of vacuum or atmospheric settings, and incorporating dry and semi-solids into the liquid, chopping of solids and emulsification with the mixing head, heating and cooling using the jacket, dispersion emulsification, reconstitution of powders, rehydration, and re-establishment of soluble products. So we have a very broad range of applications that can be handled. Take a look at some of the key features. And the image on the right here is the multi-duty version, which we talked about, which has some of the additional features. I won't go through all the details, the table sets it out, but some of the things to highlight are the scalability to our different mixer models, and the multi-duty version scales to all three, including the multiverter for the higher viscosity products. The basic version has got the atmospheric and the vacuum mixing. Also to mention that the multi-duty version has the pressurized tank, the agitator, which is equipped on a lift arm that you can see raised here in the image. And a system for direct steam injection is provided as an option, as well as having the positive displacement pump as standard. So depending on your requirements, you would select the basic or the multi-duty pilot version, and a number of options are available additionally to tailor the mixer to your particular needs. Some of the key features and the overall dimensions. The batch size is 140 litres maximum, and as mentioned, it's 80 to 140, depending on the recipe and how the mixing function is set up. We have a operator interface screen for controls, and we describe it as partially manually operated. That's because the operator needs to intervene at some critical stages to add ingredients, for example. But the control system takes care of the control of all the automatic parts and the temperature control and the instrumentation. The interior stainless steel is finished to 3A standards with 0.8 micron surface finish and polished welds. And of course, it's a sanitary design for CIP cleaning. The tank in the multi-duty version is pressurized, or a full vacuum version in the basic. So that gives some different functions depending on the vacuum and heating requirements, for example. The tank is fitted with a heating and cooling jacket on the tank and wall, and insulation of the outer jacket to conserve energy. We have a side-mounted inlet for minor ingredients and a bottom-mounted inlet for powder suction, again bringing that powder in under the liquid level to minimize foaming. And the heart that I mentioned was that bottom-mounted mixer with 2 stator types, which are exchangeable. That's for both the internal and external mixing setup. And the multi-duty version as shown here has the top-mounted scraper blade agitator, which is used for the more viscous products. So a lot of flexibility in the design, allowing you to configure it in the way you want for a number of mixing ranges. There are other options available as well, and more details of these can be seen on our website and on the data sheet, which can be downloaded. You can see the full specification and utilities. So taking a look then at the Flex-Mix range as a whole, which is broader than the tank mixers that I mentioned. On the top, we see the 3 tank mixer types that have been used as the inspiration for the pilot mixer: the Liquiverter atmospheric mixer, the Flex-Mix instant vacuum mixer, and the multi-duty multiverter mixer, which has the ability to handle the higher viscosity products. And these were the inspiration, as I say, for the pilot mixer. But just to mention as well, on the bottom, some of our other mixer products: the cavitator, which is used for high shear mixing and functional improvement; the dynamic inline mixer, the Flex-Mix DAR; the static inline mixer, the Flex-Mix TPX; and the Flex-Mix TPM. So we have a very broad portfolio of mixers, and please feel free to talk to us directly or to your representative to learn more about the different mixer types other than the pilot itself. We have a lot of experience in our innovation centers of testing different products, recipes and formulations, and you can test, either bring your product yourself or rent some of our equipment, or we can develop the product with you and do the testing and the subsequent treatments as well, for example, heat treatment. Please talk to us about your mixing needs. So just coming back then to the pilot mixer, it's our all-in-one mixer solution. And to summarize the key characteristics, it's a new way to test recipes at a smaller scale and with reduced waste. This allows you to take your ideas further, to iterate through product development and changes in recipes to get just what you need with the least product waste and the ease of use of this mixer. And very importantly, it allows you to scale up confidently, because we've condensed those functions of our full-scale mixers into this pilot. You can be confident of a dependable scale up when it comes to developing full-scale production. So please feel free to contact SPX Flow or your local representative. You see our website address here. You'll find more information on all our mixers and the pilot mixer specifically on this web link, and feel free to contact us for more information. Now we'll take the question and answers. And again, a reminder, please use the Q&A function on the webinar to post your questions, and then we can deal with them. And the chat function can just be used for some other comments or general information. Let's take some time now to look at the questions. Okay, thank you everybody. I'm joined here now for some Q&A by my colleagues Ula Skitta and Ben Chow. Ben will be coming on just in a moment, I think. Ben, if you want to unmute yourself, please. So some questions coming through. Thank you for the questions coming through so far on the Q&A panel. Just repeat some of them here for the benefit of the rest of the audience. So one question was around what is the minimum batch size? Ulla, I'll let you take that one if you don't mind, please, and maybe just talk as well about the recipe considerations.
Yeah, I can do that. We said in the presentation it was from 80 liters up to 140, but it really depends on the recipe you're going to do. You have to make sure that you will have about half of it as liquid before you enter powder or oil. So the minimum batch size is definitely depending on the application. If you're going to make mayonnaise, then an 80%, you will have a lot of oil in there, so you will have a higher batch size.
Thanks, Susan. And I think it's worth adding as well, you know, this isn't a tabletop mixer. It's a much more advanced all-in-one mixer. So that's why you see also a larger batch size perhaps than some.
Yeah, all the kitchen tests are done before, and then you go to the next step, and that's with the pilot mixer, and then you can scale up to whether you use a liquidverter, instant, or multiverter.
Thanks, Ulla. Now, there were some questions coming through as well about mayonnaise, and particularly whether vacuum mixing is recommended. Ben, would you like to just take that, please, for the rest of the audience?
Yeah, it's this kind of product is quite sticky. Will be a challenge for you to use on the vacuum, apply the vacuum. So for the very final product, it will be a challenge. Most of the product in this area, but perhaps you have some product not very sticky, then you can use it. Or you can use it in the meat process. For the pre-mixing, and that will be a good choice to have a vacuum mixer.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Okay, there was another question not directly on this product, but I think some people are familiar with our liquidverter product. So the question is why is the liquidverter got a square tank design? And I guess the related question is, how do we achieve the same result here with the pilot version? Again, Ben, I think you'd answer that in the chat, but perhaps you'll just repeat that for the benefit of the audience.
Yeah. Should I repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm now typing answering another gentleman's question. Say it again. Sorry, Con. Say it again. Which question you mentioned?
The question around why the liquidverter, so the scale up, why it has a square tank, and how we achieve the same result in the pilot mixer.
Or liquidverter, we have the square tank, but in this the round tank, a design mixer, then we'll use a buffer plate in the tank to avoid free vortex.
Thank you. And then on the pilot mixer, what we have is our removable baffles, so they achieve the same result. That's where the flexibility comes in. You get the baffles, you also get the agitator on the multi-duty version that we talked about. Okay, there's a question here on what type of mixer is advised for margarine. So let's just take that answer here. Ulla, would you like to take that, or Ben?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thanks.
If the mixer, the vacuum mixer, I used to make low-fat spread to make the water base. If you want to make real margarine, you are normally not using any of these mixes. But for making the water phase for a very low calorie, low oil concentrated spread, you can use the basic version, both vacuum or not vacuum. I don't know if that answered.
Yes, thank you, Ulla. There's another one perhaps we can look at as well, is what about fruit pieces? How will the rotor and stator adjust to handle fruit pieces?
If you add any pieces, whether it's fruit or vegetables, then you should add it in the end, and you should then stop the high shear mixer or put it on very low speed, and then you can secure that they will not be spoiled.
Okay. Thanks, Ulla. There's a question on certification that this solution covers. So the mixer is manufactured with CE mark, of course. It's designed to hygienic standards, as is all our equipment. And where necessary, so for example, in the US market, then it will be an ASME rated pressure vessel for the multi-duty version. So I would say it's the normal certifications that we have for these tanks and mixers. Okay, let's see what else have we got. There's a question around the capacity on the heating on the water inlet. Thanks for the question. In terms, I'm not totally sure I understand the question. I think we need to think about that in the context of the tank size. So the tank is up to 140 litres batch, as we mentioned. So the jacket or the direct steam heating are designed to handle heating a batch of that size in terms of the heating size. I don't recall the exact size of the water inlet. We'd need to check the data sheet for that. Thank you for the question. Okay, thanks for some really good questions coming in. Keep them coming. So the next one is, do we make any claims on the final particle size of the product and without any pieces? So in terms of having a smooth product. Ulla, would you like to comment on that, please, in terms of the tests that were done and the scale down, if you like, from our normal mixers?
Yeah, we have checked the pilot mixer on different standard recipe making emulsions, oil and water emulsions, and compared with the same speed on the advanced mixers or on the big scale mixers. And we are fitting to the same particle sizes up to the liquiverter, multiverter, or instant mixer. So we are sure we can achieve the same particle size. Thanks,
Ulla. There was a question, I'm not sure if everyone's still, there's a question about a recipe with Zathan gum. I think, Ben, you've answered that on the Jari comment to come offline. Perhaps, Ben or Ulla, you can comment on some of the considerations when mixing with gum and what challenges that poses.
Stabilizers. Yeah.
Yes.
The challenge is for sure that you should avoid to having fish eyes, and it's the high shear mixer, and both the two types of high shear mixers we have can avoid the fish eyes. But you of course need to add the stabilizers. If you're adding a stabilizer that is dissolved in hot water, then if you put it into cold water, also in the pilot mixer, it will not dissolve. You can get the fish eyes away, but you will still have some grains that will disappear when the temperature increase. So it's all depending on the type of stabilizers. But the high shear impact is enough to avoid fish eyes.
Thank you, Ulla. Appreciate that. I think there were some follow-on questions coming through on the margarine question. So what I'd advise is the person who's got the questions around margarine, I think it mentions 80% fat spread. Please mail us, Ulla or Ben, and then we can respond directly to your specific requirements on that.
Yeah, and this one, I'm sure we will have the assistance from our colleagues at Gerstenberg Schröder, who are the margarine experts.
Yeah, thanks, Ulla. There's a comment or question. Are we going to get a copy of the presentation? Yes. After we finish, we'll be sending out a link to ask you to do the survey, and then there'll be a link sent to the final presentation as well as a follow-up. So that's that will be available. Okay, so somebody's asked for emulsification of water and oil. Which mixer is most suitable?
If it's in oil and water, and the viscosity is below these 500 centipoise, then it would be the basic one. If you're going for a consistency like the mayonnaise, then it would be the advanced.
Thanks, Ulla. There was a question earlier, I think then you've answered it in the chat, but it's worth repeating, I think, a question about CIP procedure. The basic system has got CIP spray ball, and the control system has the CIP program. But I think it's worth reminding that the mixer is a standalone mixer, so once it takes care of the CIP within its own systems, within its own controls. So we can talk further on that if anyone has any more specific questions on that. Okay. Then there's a question on powder liquid mixing. If this, okay, let me see. Can we confirm if the inline mixer for powder liquid mixing, for example, naphthalene sulfates? So that's possibly a product I think that we haven't got experience in, Ulla. But
is it a food ingredient or?
Okay, I don't have that clarification. Not one that I'm familiar with.
No, but what was the question? How?
The question if we can use an inline mixer for powder liquid mixing.
Inline mixer. I mean, this pilot mixer here is with a tank, so it's principal a batch mixer, but you can then have the bottom mixer or the inline. But you need to add the powder into the tank. So you cannot, I'm not sure I understand really the question.
No, I'd suggest, so if you're the person who raised that question, can you contact us directly with that requirement? As you can appreciate, mixing questions are quite specific to the recipe and the formulation. So thank you, appreciate that. Okay, there's a suggestion, I guess, as much a question, if we could have a table with limits so we can see which options to choose for different applications. Thanks, Lawrence, for that suggestion. We certainly take that on board to give some application guidance. The core mixer, as mentioned in the presentation, we have the basic and the multi-duty version where you get the additional functionality. But once you get that version, then it comes with the baffle plates, for example. It comes with the two stators. So you've got the equipment you need then to try different recipes. And in the instruction manual, there are details provided on how to do that. But thanks for the suggestion. Okay. We've got time for any new questions. So if you have some others, please feel free to raise them. Okay, thank you. Another question. Can the mixers be used for liquid soap formulations?
Soap?
Liquid soap, yes. Yes,
it can.
Okay, thanks, Ulla. Okay, we had some questions on margarine. Question on the power consumption, and the power consumption for the mixer is 7.5. It's a 7.5 kilowatt motor, and where the pump is fitted, that's 2.2 kilowatts. So it's a relatively low power consumption for what the function of the mixer is capable of doing. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions on margarine.
I think there's some questions in the chat I can see.
Okay, let's just take a look at that. Thanks, Ulla. Okay, let me just go up a little bit. Okay, there's a question about how the mixer, I think we've answered the one, Christy, thank you, on the batch size. Ulla's taken that one. So that your requirement is slightly below the 80 that we talked about. Question from how our mixer compares with our competitors' similar models. Any distinct differences or features?
I think the number one, the best distinguish is that we have made 3-in-1. That means that from this one pilot mixer, you can scale up to an atmospheric mixer, the liqueverter, the vacuum mixer, the instant mixer, and the high viscosity mixer, the multiverter. So with having one pilot mixer, you can scale up to 3 mixers. That has been the aim of the development, and that is the number one benefits compared for the benefit or comparison to our competitors. Yeah, I mean, the number one is that you make sure that buying a pilot mixer, that you can scale up to the production mixer. And our scale up is to the SPX portfolio, and I'm sure the other ones are working on scaling up to theirs.
Yeah, I think that's the really important point, Ulla, isn't it? Whereas the batch size isn't is sort of medium, I would say. It gives us the confidence that we're able to replicate and scale up to that full functionality.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And many customers have both the liqueverter and the instant in the production facilities. So you only need one pilot mixer.
Yeah. Okay. And as said, if somebody wants to, they can also rent or come and test it at our innovation center before committing to a purchase. So try to have that flexibility as well. Ben, can I ask, there's a question come through which is possibly in Mandarin. Can you take a look at that one, please?
Yeah. Asking for 您这个是问最终产品可以做到多少浓度吗？ Or is asking for the concentration of this concentration. What can we say concentration 呢？我们是用来粘度，我们是用了粘度来那个，我们考虑的是粘度。通常你这个粘度浓度虽然高了，但也可能它粘度并不是很高啊。那如果我们谈粘度的话呢，刚才在聊的这个实验机能做到大概1-2万10多万里伯都可以做到。浓度的话，我们没有把这个当做那个设计时候用。
Ben, thank you. Obviously, supporting that answer. I'll ask you, Ben, if you can, if you want to answer that question on the written chat, that would probably also be beneficial. So, and while you're doing that, we have another question.
I can just add some in English. Then, I mean, on viscosity, on the concentration, I would say it's mainly depending on the viscosity of the product, meaning that you can make up to 75% if you have a lot of sugar and fat, and if you have 3 or 5% pectin, then it's only 3 and 5%. So it's very much depending on the ingredients you have in your recipes, and I'm sure that was what Ben was saying in Chinese.
Ulla 刚才补充了一下，就是说他这个大概Google 了一下你这个中文，那么如果这个取决于咱们还是取决于这个粘度，大概他说可以70几个，咱们这边通常讲总干吧，70几个总干，这个样子。
All good, Ben. Thank you. You can see we've got a global audience here. Appreciate that, Ben. Okay. So another question. Can you mix particles with this mixer? Or and the answer is yes, we can incorporate particles, but they will be passed through the high shear mixer head. So they will be smoothened as part of the mixing process.
And you slow down the speed then when you after you have added the particles.
Yeah. Thanks, Ulla. And then which mixer do we suggest for materials with foaming properties? I think Ulla, you're the expert on that.
Is the foaming intention or to avoid foaming?
No, we don't know. If you want an answer to clarify it, that would be helpful, or a question to clarify it.
Well, I can add something here. If we talk about this foaming, quite popular, we are talking about this special purpose, with very rich content, protein, fat kind of material, and easily foaming. And then our experience is vacuum, and will be not a good choice. Liquid water kind of thing will be better. Vacuum will make this foaming even heavily.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
And in a question, can we talk about the mixer that's used for, specially used for oil and water emulsion? We talked about that a little earlier. Ulla, do you want to just go over that again, please?
Yeah, if you want to make oil and water emulsions, then that is more or less all food products. So that could be ice cream, desserts, and similar products like that. Then it's the basic with the vacuum or the liquefied version. If you're talking about oil and water emulsions like mayonnaise, where the viscosity becomes high, then it is the multi-duty.
Thanks, Ulla. And we've got a clarification from Simon. Thank you. In terms of the foaming duty, it's for preparing a cleaning solution. Froth formation is an innate property of the powder material. How to avoid foaming? So it's around, the question is to avoid foaming.
Yeah, that is a very good question, and it requires a very long answer. But I mean, what we are doing is we are taking in the powder under the liquid surface. And yeah, if you have vacuum, you will have a lot of foam. But then when you release the vacuum, the foam will also be released. But to avoid foaming is actually the opposite of high shear mixing, that is to have a low shear mixing. So you will really need to take care of the step you use in mixing compared to the ingredients you're adding. The more high shear, the lower the temperature, and the higher the vacuum, the more foam. But when you then release the vacuum, the foam will collapse. But still, if you mix milk powder into cold milk or cold water, it will foam more than if you do it into hot media. And the higher you shear, the more you will create foam. So it is actions to take, but that's not just in the pilot, that's also in the production scale. So that needs carefully being addressed.
I can also add something here. You talk about the CIP foaming, and I'm not sure if you are using the APV vacuum mixer. Honestly, when you run CIP cleaning, you should turn off the vacuum.
Yeah, I think the question is around preparing a cleaning solution. I suspect it's a detergent preparation from powder rather than cleaning itself. But Simon, I'd suggest why don't you send us some more details of your requirement offline, and then we can take a specific look at the formulation and your recipe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question. Does our product provide the vacuum conditions during the feeding of the total process, or is it convenient for us to provide the vacuum level of the different processes? So if I understand the question correctly, we do use the vacuum to draw in, to suck in the powder in the vacuum operating mode. So that vacuum is adjustable. So no additional vacuum equipment is required if I've understood the question correctly. Thank you. Okay. I think those are all the questions we have on the panel. Let me just check on the chat. Okay, we've covered the particles. Well, thanks everyone. I see a lot of people still online. Really appreciate you staying on to listen to the questions, and some really good questions coming through. Of course, feel free always to contact us directly with your requirements and any questions you might have. I'll just give a moment in case there are any other questions coming in. And while we're doing that, perhaps Ula or Ben, do you have any closing comments that you'd like to add?
No, just come back to us offline with more questions. You can send email to us or contact your local sales support, and we can discuss on the question you want to raise up. This price, as I mentioned to some other friend, is roughly between 50,000 K to 100,000 K dollar, depend on case by case, depend on the applications. You will get an offer from Ula's team in Denmark.
Thanks, Ben. Okay. Anything else from you, Ula? Thank you for answering those questions.
No, I'm just adding, yeah, you can see our contact details here on the slide, and we'll be happy to help you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, and thanks for the panel to answer the questions. So again, thanks for taking the time to join us for this webinar. We really enjoy sharing our new products with you. Please take the time to take the survey. You'll get a mail with the survey. That really helps us to tailor these webinars and our products, of course, to better match your requirements. As said already, please feel free to contact us with your specific requirements. And we're really looking forward to providing you quotations and support on our new pilot mixer, and indeed any of our Flex-Mix mixer range. So thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day, and appreciate you joining.